Here, and today I'm going to do a full contour of number 19. Without further ado, the first thing I'm going to do is basically put the screw in. So this is the most critical part. You want to put the screw in because when the tooth is loose, the contacts can be different. So this is what I do. I put the screw in, but I don't make it too tight. So just close it so that it's secure. So I look at the contacts here. I have a permanent pen. You can always erase it with alcohol, rubbing alcohol that we have in the lab. So I go ahead and kind of mark the contact areas on both teeth on each side. So number 20 and number 18. As such. So I kind of have an idea about where the contacts are going to be. And then from this side, I'm gonna do the same thing. So the contact is kind of starting from there to here. Okay. And on this side, starting from there to there. So this is how it's gonna look like. So we have contacts on the buccal side like this, and on the occlusal side, I have put the width of the contact. After we do this, we're gonna take the tooth out. And then we're gonna put our peg inside. So right now, just the peg. I'm gonna put it in, make sure that everything's good. I want to make sure also that whatever residue you have from the previous wax up is cleaned up, especially in here between the teeth, because that again can affect your contacts. Okay, so once that's done, you have marked your contacts, and on the occlusal surface and on the buccal surface, we're gonna go into starting adding our wax. So always have this in mind, which side of the tooth you're holding. So I always like to hold my tooth like this, so I know this is gonna be the buccal side, this is gonna be the lingual side. I'm gonna hold it like this, and then I'm gonna start adding my wax. I like to use my PK2 for the most part to add up my wax. I like to have it as a additive kind of technique. I don't like to have to shave a lot, because that's by itself it's very time consuming. So I'd rather just add slowly to the peg like that. So I'm going to start from the sides. I'm going to put this here so you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm sorry if this is taking a while, because again, I'm using an alcohol torch and I'm sitting at home. Usually the gas is so much faster in terms of heating up. So bear with me. I hope this helps at least a few people in our class. Make them a little bit more confident about waxing. Because I know, COVID now, with the whole situation with COVID and everything, we don't have a lot of lab time inside school. I totally get it's very hard, and I feel sorry for a lot of people who are struggling. So again, my intentions are only to help a few people who need some extra tips about making number 19 and wax up in general. Okay. So again, take your time, try to add the wax nicely, so then you don't have to carve so much. That's gonna save you a lot of time. Maybe it's gonna take you a little bit more time at the beginning, but then it's gonna save you a lot of time and stress at the end trying to make it perfect. Okay, I kind of covered every single surface of the CEJ. Okay, so that's that. And then at this point, I'm gonna start adding my wax to the surface, keeping in mind that my occlusal surface is gonna come last. So this is how I do it. My occlusal surface is gonna come last. I'm gonna work on my contacts first, make sure every single contact is fine and it's symmetrical and all my embrasures are matching the opposite side of the mandible. And then once I'm confident with that, I'm gonna start working on my occlusal surface. So again, I'm gonna add just a little bit to bring the surface up, so I kind of have marked my contacts, so I can make up my contact areas and proper contact points. So that's that. I'm gonna add a little bit here again on the buccal side. I'm gonna add a little bit more before I put it in the typodont again, and then mark. Okay, so that's it for now. I'm going to bring back my typodont. I'm going to put this in. And then I'm going to put this, the screw back in again. Because again, if you don't put the screw back, your tooth tends to stand a little bit up. So then, you know, when you go back and you put your screw back in, your contacts are going to get messed up. So at this point, I'm going to keep my tooth in the typodont, and then I'm gonna add a little bit more here just to bring it up a little bit before I add a little bit of wax to my contacts. And then I'm gonna start adding a little bit of wax on this side, kind of like going towards my contact, towards the mesial, and then for my distal also. So I'm going to hold it like this. I'm going to look at the contact, hold it until it, and then you can blow it until it's, you know, holding itself, and then let go. So again, I'm looking at it from the occlusal side. Looks good from the occlusal side. I'm going to add a little bit more. So this is how it looks like so far. I'm gonna wait a little bit until it holds itself, and then I'm gonna take it out. Okay. I'm gonna take the tooth out. So I'm gonna have something like this. Okay. I'm gonna have something like this. Now, what I want to do is give these structures a little bit of support, because you don't want to break this. So as soon as I have this and it's nice and perfect, I know where it's pointing, I'm gonna get a little bit of wax and kind of go from underneath, and it's like a bridge, you know, you want to give it a support so it doesn't fall. So just like a bridge, you want to give it support. It becomes like a triangular shape. That way it's not going to break on you. Okay. So this is how it looks like so far. This side. You know, I can see the tooth is already getting a little bit of shape. So imagine, so this is how I think about my tool. So imagine this is a pen, and you want to put it in your ink and kind of draw with it. So again, I kind of like heat up my my instrument, put it in wax. Imagine this is just a little bit of ink, and each time you just want to draw out your tooth. So this is how it looks like so far. I'm gonna give it a little bit of more support on the mesial side, just to make sure it's not gonna break before I put it back in the typodont. Like that. So this is what we have so far. Back in the typodont. Okay, and already we have our contacts and we have our embrasures on the buccal surface. Now I'm gonna work on one side at a time. I usually like to do the buccal surface first, so I'm gonna take it out again. I'm gonna add a little bit more wax, make it a little bit round, add my height of contour, and then we can move forward from it. Move away from it and work on other sides of the tooth. So again, I'm treating this like a pen that I'm basically drawing with. Alright, so if you're not sure with the height of contour, you can always take your instrument and kind of point at it. So the height of contour is at the gingival third on the buccal side. So I take my wax up and then I check it. Right now I don't have a height of contour. I need to add a little bit more of wax on, you know, close to the CEJ. So I have my height of contour coming up at the gingival third. Okay, that's that. A little bit more on this side. Kind of draw it out. I'm gonna make my tool really hot this time. So you see the tip is gonna be red before I actually work with it. This way you can make the surfaces very smooth very easily. Okay, and then I'm gonna check my height of contour again on this side. So yeah, it's kinda, you know, it's at the gingival third. I'm gonna shave it down a little bit, make it smooth. It doesn't have to be finished at this point. You know, you kind of want to set down the foundation. You want to set down the foundation and then move forward to another aspect of the tooth anatomy. Yep, I have my height of contour right now, which is at gingival third. I'm gonna put the tooth back into typodont. Okay, I'm gonna look at it from every single aspect. And then I'm gonna start adding to the proximal contacts. So I'm gonna hold the tooth like this. I'm kind of looking at it from an angle where I can see where I can see the sides only, and then add very slowly and hold the wax until it holds itself, and then let go. And then you can blow the wax to kind of make it hold itself faster. I'm going to keep adding wax here. And then on this side, on the distal. Again, I'm going to check it. I'm going to put it back in the typodont. So during this process, you want to check all the time. It's going to save you a lot of time later down the line, you know, because you may put the tooth back in and then you realize, oh my God, you know, it's gone too far. So right now, every single time, especially with the contacts, I'm adding wax. I'm going to put it back in the typodont to make sure that my contacts are not too big. So again, if you look at the tooth here right now, the contact was a little bit too much, so I'm going to shave it down just a little bit so that, you know, next time I want to put the tooth back in, it's not going to fracture my wax, because that can happen a lot. You know, you're going to put a nice contact and then it's a little big, you put the tooth back in and then boom, it's broken. So you want to avoid that. And just shave it down a little bit more, like so. Awesome. Put it back in again. Yep, see, this time it went in much better. And then right now I have my embrasures on the buccal side. And then on the occlusal side, I still have to work on, and on the lingual side, I still have to add on. So how I look at it is, I still have to bring it out a little bit compared to this tooth here, and then you just have to look at the occlusal embrasures, right? So I'm going to take it out again. Actually, I may just mark up. Let me just mark up how far I want to bring it out before I take it out. So on this side, I'm going to take it out maybe to this point. Yeah, kind of eyeballing it. And then on this side, I'm going to kind of bring it to that point. Yeah. All right. Now I know how far my tooth is going to come out on the lingual side. I'm just going to make it a continuous line from here to there. All right, I'm going to put it back in the typodont again. All right, so far, you know, I would say it's 90% there in terms of embrasures. The lingual embrasures and the buccal embrasures are there, right? So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start working on the occlusal surface. and then from there I'm gonna basically bring everything together. So at this point I'm not gonna do anything more on the contacts, because if I do and then I put the occlusal surface and then they don't match, then the whole thing is gonna go wrong. So I'm gonna put it here. I'm gonna put the screw back in. Again, not too tight. You just want to make sure it's closed, but it's not too tight. Okay. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this tooth here and kind of eyeballing it. I'm going to, put my cusps like dots. I'm going to use dots just to know where my cusps are going to be. So one is going to be kind of here. So that's one cusp. One's gonna be about here. Okay, and then again, you have to make sure these are all aligned. You can use this instrument to kind of like eyeball it and make sure they all follow the buccal and occlusal line, and then one here. So this one, let me see. Yeah, this one has to be the middle cusp has to be a little bit. The middle buccal cusp has to be a little bit closer to that one. So I'm just gonna add it here to the closer to the distal. Okay, hold it there like so, and then I'm gonna put in my distolingual and mesiolingual cusps. So one here, and one, oops. Okay. I need to take that off. Not a big deal. And then the next cusp is going to be here somewhere. Okay, so again, I put my cusps like that. You can see. So from here, I'm going to make sure that these are all in a line, going from this cusp tip to this cusp tip, following it, and then come here, just like how it is on this side. Okay, and then I'm gonna use my PK2. I'm gonna use the same instrument actually. I was thinking maybe, yeah, I'm gonna use my PK1 for the occlusal surface. So kind of finish my cusp here. You want to make sure the heights are all the same. So again, I'm gonna go in, make sure this is a little bit too high, but we can take care of that. That one's good. And these two, they all have to touch. So I'm gonna have to bring these two, the lingual cusps, a little bit further up. And then now I'm gonna hold it from the buccal side, and then I'm gonna add wax just like that. Imagine these are the tip of the mountains, and you kind of want to connect them together, but you still want to have your tips. You don't want to connect the tips together. You want to kind of connect them, but like a continuous line that connects the two mountains together. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Again, if you look at it, the tooth morphology is kind of coming together. You know, as soon as you start connecting those points on the occlusal surface, the morphology slowly comes together. You just have to be patient with it. And take your time. Make sure you're not shaking. You can use your finger rest technique to kind of like secure your hand and really add precisely to each side of the tooth. So those cusps are now connected on the buccal side. I'm going to add a little bit of more wax before I move on. A little bit more wax here, maybe. Oh, this is too slow. I'm sorry about that, guys. I know this is not the most efficient way of waxing, but please bear with me. Alright, then I'm going to take the tooth out again. So again, you know, number 19, you have to keep doing this thing, because if you don't, then you're gonna spend a lot of time readjusting every single thing. It's gonna save you a lot of time in the future if you do that. So now I'm gonna look at my proximal surfaces and kind of do the same thing. I'm gonna connect them together like that. So again, the proximal surface is gonna look like a rhomboid shape, and then your buccal surface is gonna be a trapezius, and your occlusal surface is gonna be a hexagon. I think it's a hexagon. So you want to keep those shapes in mind when you're waxing. Okay, I kind of have my marginal ridge on this side. Gonna add a little bit of more wax to kind of connect these two together, like so. And then I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. I'm gonna connect the two cusp tips together to kind of make it continuous, like that. So that gives me the marginal ridge and also connects the cusps like this. And then I'm gonna go to the lingual side, do the same thing with the cusps. I'm gonna connect them here. Very slowly. Add a little bit of more wax. Alright, and then I'm going to put it back in the typodon again. Okay, and then just look at it. I can see that I need to add more on the lingual surface. It needs to come further out, because if I hold my instrument here, it needs to touch just like how it's touching there. This one needs to touch too. So I'm going to take my tooth out, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of wax, keeping in mind that the height of contour on the lingual surface is mid-third. So I want to add more wax on the middle side and kind of spread it to the periphery of the tooth, so to the occlusal and to the cervical. So kind of like put it in the middle, heat up my instrument, and kind of spread it to the top and bottom like that. It's going to give you a nice height of contour on the mid-third. Alright, and then I'm going to take my instrument, check it. It's kind of on the mid-third. It's on the mid-third kind of, but it's kind of like closer to the gingival third. So I'm going to add a little bit more to the middle, so it's going to become like a more continuous wax up around the gingival third. I mean the mid-third. Just like that. Okay. I'm going to put it back in here. Alright, so you can see now this side is good, but then this side needs more. So I'm going to take it out again and then add a little bit more to the mesial side of the lingual surface. So a little bit of wax here, maybe a little bit more. And then I'm going to put it back in again. Yeah, so it's coming along. I'm still not, it still needs a little bit more of wax here on this side. So I'm going to take it out again, and then I'm going to add a little bit more wax here on this side. And then also a little bit of more wax on this side to kind of makes it like a rectangular shape that kind of like follows the other cusp of the adjacent tooth. I'm gonna put it back in here again. So now I kind of have my occlusal embrasures on the distal and the mesial. On the distal side, the embrasure has to be a little bit smaller, so I need to add a little bit more wax on the distal side. And on the mesial side, I'm kind of happy with it because, you know, the size of the embrasures are kind of the same. So then, you know, we can perfect it at the end by adding either more wax or taking away some wax to make it better. But again, this has to kind of become a little bit rounder, so I'm going to take it out and I'm going to add a little bit more wax to the distal side of the lingual aspect. Putting it back in, make sure the wax is holding itself. Yeah, so right now I am happy with how the embrasure is. even though it needs to be a little bit, let me see. So the embrasure on this side, the embrasure on that side. So yeah, they're kind of the same height and the same size at the same time. So I'm okay with my embrasures now. So this is the time that I'm going to move on to the occlusal surface. So again, you want to put in your teeth. You want to put in your tooth, and then you want to kind of check your contacts. You want to make sure your contacts are offline, and then your embrasures. These are the most important thing. And then once you do that, you want to go around the embrasures, around the contact surfaces, and kind of like give it a little bit of polish. Make sure everything is nice and smooth. Doesn't have to be too much, okay? Just a little bit, so it's not any inconsistency in the surface. Okay. Again, on the buccal side, we have our height of contour at gingival third, and on the lingual side, we have it at mid-third. So you want to keep that in mind all the time when you're waxing. Those height of contours have a lot of points. So even if your tooth is not super smooth, but you have your height of contours all figured out, and they're nice, you can get a lot of points for those. Because again, those are some of the protective features of the tooth, as you remember from the beginning lectures. Height of contour, just like the contact areas, are very important in giving teeth their protective measures. You know, having that tooth under the gingiva under constant pressure, that makes it strong. You know, you can use one of these brushes, you know, a toothbrush that you don't use. These are the best. You know, you can clean your surfaces, make sure there's no debris of used up wax. I'm gonna put it in again, and then I'm just gonna eyeball the tooth. So far, it's not bad. So I'm gonna start working on the occlusal surface. I'm gonna put the screw back in. Again, not too tight. And then from here, I want to make sure the cusps are at the right height and they're following each other. They should be on the same. They should follow the same line. So if I put this cusp on this cusp, they should follow, and then same thing here. So you want to make sure your cusps are all following before you continue adding any more wax to the occlusal surface. This is the most important. So like I like this tool. To kind of like follow the arch, kind of like having something like to compare it and to kind of like see if, you know, my cusps are following the arch. And this one for the height of contours. If you don't have something like that, you can use this instrument here for your height of contours. But make sure you always keep checking them, because things can change. You know, you're adding wax, you're taking off wax. So every single time you do that, you know, just make sure you go quickly around your tooth and look at the height of contours and your embrasures and everything, and your contacts in case you lose them. You know, if you're polishing your tooth, you don't want to lose that. Okay, so how I'm gonna create these cusps are, I'm gonna make my instrument really hot. I'm still holding it on the fire here, so I'm gonna make it really hot, just like that. It's gonna be a little red, and then I'm kinda like add wax and go to the edges and kind of like drag it down to the occlusal table. So it's gonna kind of give me the triangular ridge that I'm looking for. Same thing here. You want to kind of start from the middle and then spread it up and towards the periphery. And then same thing for the lingual cusps. Alright, so at this point, I kind of laid down the foundation of my occlusal surface. So I'm going to take out the tooth. So I can have an easier access to, manipulate it and looking at it at different directions. So again, at this point, I'm just gonna heat up my instrument and kind of like start shaping the cusps. So here, I'm gonna go out, and then here, I'm gonna make it come to the center. Like so. And then, I keep comparing my tooth with this one, from time to time, making sure that the tooth that I'm making resembles the one that I took out. So again, see how my vocal side is kind of like getting its shape by me just connecting the pieces together. I'm gonna add a little bit more here, kind of like drag it down to the vocal surface, and then here kind of like give it the cusp very slowly. Again, I'm having the tooth side by side, so I can see what it looks like, so I can easily manipulate my cusps by looking at these. Right now I'm just adding the ridges so I can carve around them afterwards. Again, I'm gonna put the screw back in. Now it's gonna be time to actually carve on the occlusal surface. Oops. All right. My distal cusp is a little short, so what I'm gonna do is just add a little bit more wax on this side, just like that. So now it's the same height. So here's my lingual cusp, my distal lingual cusp. I'm gonna add a little bit more to my distal lingual cusp, just like that. And the mesiolingual cusp is fine, I believe. Yep, it's fine. Okay, so now with the occlusal surface, I'm gonna use this instrument and kind of carve around the cusps like that. So that's the middle cusp is the most prominent one. So I'm just carving around it and then keep cleaning the residues. You see how the buccal side is now look like? Again, I'm gonna come back down and carve around each cusp. Now I'm gonna take this instrument. This is good if you want to just follow each cusp bridges and grooves. See how my occlusal anatomy is coming along. You just have to be really patient with it. You have to be really patient, take your time, and kind of go around each cusp, just like that. So I'm just checking the tooth, making sure what I have is matching here. Again, I'm just eyeballing it, just making sure, you know, everything's good. If I need to add anything else. All right, so at this point, I'm just gonna carve around the tooth a little bit, just kind of give it a smoother finish. And then I'm gonna finish my occlusal surface, and then everything's gonna be finished. Again, I'm sorry, this has been slow because of the alcohol torch. But you also have to be patient, you know, with your tooth. Making sure that you keep checking every single aspect, because you know, you may change one thing and then the whole thing changes. Okay, this is how it looks like so far. On the occlusal surface, on the lingual surface. I was just looking at my contacts and I just noticed that this side just increased in size, and now my embrasure was too small. So again, you always have to keep in mind that you keep checking your teeth together, not just one tooth at a time. You want to keep comparing every single thing together so that you always keep that synchrony. Okay, I need a little bit more carving on this side. So I'm just gonna hold it like this. Just gonna carve around this edge here. This is where it's hanging out and kind of like making my embrasure small. So I'm just gonna carve around it, making sure that my cusp doesn't go away. Putting it back in. Okay. Now I'm a little happier with it. And then now I have to do the mesial side a little bit too. So I'm just gonna carve just how I did it with the distal. Okay, so you don't want to carve this way. You always want to carve around it, and you kind of want to look at it at the same angle when you're carving. Carve layer by layer very slowly, because again, these are your contacts, and if you're not careful, you can actually lose your contact. And contacts, again, just like height of contour, they carry a lot of points on your practical exam. Okay. Putting it back in again. I'm going to use this and kind of, this is a little aggressive in terms of polishing, but I noticed that it has a little bit of, the tooth is kind of like sticking out a little bit just on one point. So I'm just going to shave it off with this layer by layer until I'm happy with it. So right now, I think I'm happy with it. So I'm just going to keep it the way it is. All right, put the screw back in. And then just go back to my occlusal surface. I'm going to use this instrument again. I'm going to go around the cusps very gently. And then as I'm working, I want to make sure that the occlusal surface is clean, because it will impact your work if you're not careful. You see how I'm following every single cusp? You kind of like follow around the cusp, and your central anatomical groove is going to come together by itself. See, just like that. You kind of go around each cusp, following it to the center, and then slowly your whole anatomical groove is going to come together. So at this point, I'm happy with my occlusal surface. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the tooth out. So these are the last, so basically in the exam, this is something that you want to do in the last hour, but you don't want to change anything in terms of your embrasures, your contacts, because you don't want to lose them. So you only focus on polishing and make sure that your surfaces are nice and smooth. So I'm just going to go around making sure that the surfaces are smooth and there are no extra wax sticking anywhere, especially at my height of contours. So I just do that. Nice and gentle. Also make sure your CJ is nice and clean before you actually hand in your tooth, because these are again additional points that you can lose if you don't take them into consideration. I hope that some of these tips that I gave in this video is gonna at least help a couple of people. That would make me really happy. Again, this tooth is I'm not trying to demonstrate here perfection. I'm just trying to give you a little bit of advice and tips on how to maybe add a little bit of different tricks to your own tricks that you use in the lab. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna wash this tooth with soap and water, which is gonna make a huge difference. So before I do that, I'm gonna clean my typodont. So you wanna make sure your typodont is nice and clean before you put the tooth back in. So the tooth is washed. You can see like how different it looks now. It's nice and clean. So I'm gonna give it a little bit of dabbing here. Make sure it's nice and clean. But make sure you don't lose your tooth in the sink, because there were students who, you know, going to wash their teeth and then all of a sudden they lose it in the sink. So be really careful about that. And then what I'm gonna do is, for the final touches, I'm gonna take my pantyhose and kind of go around it, you know, give it all around polish to make it nice and shiny. And this is what I get. So a very nice and shiny tooth that I'm gonna turn in. Just like that. And this is the final result of what I worked on. Again, my name is Amir, and if you have any questions, please you can reach out to me. You know, I know this is during COVID time and it's really hard for a lot of people to get in touch with each other, but you know, if I can help one person with this video, I would be really happy. Have a wonderful day, and I hope you do great in your dental anatomy exam. Take care and bye-bye.